Okay, good morning, period 2. Today is Monday, April 27th, 2020. The topic is the average rate of change and geometric sequences. Write that down. So open up your notebooks, make sure you write that down. And then I have my notes here. Okay, so you should be back. All right, so average rate of change. I'm just showing this to you once and you're going to see it in your homework all week. I'm going to do one homework problem with you on page 27, number 14. So I wrote that in the instructions to open that page. Make sure that's open. Okay, average rate of change is simply slope. But the difference is it could be a curve or a line. It's just the change of y over change of x whenever two things happen. So for example, suppose it was exponential like this. Okay, here's your graph. The problem may say find the average rate of change from here to here, let's just say. So you would do the change, you'd find those two coordinates, and you would do change of y over change of x, and that would be your average rate of change. And they write it as written as a decimal. Written as a decimal. Okay, so here are your notes. It means slope, could be a curve or a line. Change of y over change of x from wherever the problem states, like whichever two areas it states. It could be in a table or a graph. All right, it also means speed. Average rate of change, speed, slope, all the same thing. And it's written as a decimal when you see it in the answer. Okay, so now I want you to open to page 27 in your red workbooks, like it said in the instructions, and go to number 14. Okay, so pause and do that. All right, you should be with me now. The table below shows the average diameter of a pupil in a person's eye as he or she grows older. What is the average rate of change in millimeters per year of a person's pupil diameter from age 20 to age 80? Okay, so see how it specifies 2 points. So circle those. So from age 20 to age 80. That's all you focus on. Ignore everything else in the problem. And now simply do change of y over change of x. Okay, it doesn't matter if this is exponential, linear, quadratic. You just circle the two they mentioned and you find change of y over change of x. So I'm going to do 2.3 minus 4.7. Those are my y's. Okay, anytime you see the table, that would be your x, that would be your y. Okay, over. Now pause it and see if you can finish it. Remember, the answer is a decimal. Okay, you're back. Then you're going to do 80 minus 20. All right. So when you do 2.3 minus 4.7, you get negative 2.4. And 80 minus 20 is 60. But you notice it doesn't leave any fractions. Divide the top by the bottom, this divided by this, and you get negative 0.04. So your answer is 4. All right, and it's that simple. So you're going to see a lot of those this week in your homework. Okay. All right, next, write down these two geometric sequences. Pause and do that. Okay, you're back. All right, so let's do the a sub n, and let's find it from what we did last week. All right, so remember, this is your first term, this is your second term, third term, fourth term. Okay, so what we want to do first is find the common ratio. Remember, it's always multiplication. You could be multiplying by a whole number, a decimal fraction, doesn't matter, but it's always multiplication. What are you multiplying by to get from here to here? Has to be multiplication. This is times 2. And the pattern will continue, times 2, times 2. Okay? If it's multiplication, okay, it's called a blank sequence. See if you can fill in that word. We talked about it last week. Okay, you're back. You should have written geometric. Also known as, I don't think I put this in your notes last week. What do you think it's also known as? Something we've been doing. Pause and do it. Okay, exponential. So you're only doing arithmetic and geometric. So it's either exponential or linear. So you're either going to be multiplying or adding. And again, multiplying and dividing, but it's always multiplying either by a whole number or fraction. And in arithmetic, you're adding or you're adding a negative, which is appears as subtraction. Okay. So we go back to here. Your common ratio. See if you can fill it in. Pause and do it yourself. All right, you're back. So your common ratio. So the common ratio, let's keep talking about that. Common ratio is 2. So that's your base. Common ratio is 2. All right. And then your exponent is your n. Your exponent, your n. So this is 2 to the first, 2 to the second, 2 to the third, 2 to the fourth. So let's put n for whichever term we want to plug in. And the number in front, like your coefficient here, is your y-intercept. So you want to back up to the 0. So we're going to go back to 0. So instead of multiplying by 2, we're going to divide by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. And now let's just try it out. So 2 to the first is 2, times 4 is 8, check. 2 to the second is 4, times 4 is 16, check. 2 to the third is 8, times 4 is 32, and so on. Okay, so this would be your basically your equation or your sequence formula there. It's your explicit formula. Okay, so now we're going to do the geometric sequence formula. Again, you could write it either way, but you need to know how to do both because this could be a multiple choice question. So a sub n is equal to the first term times the common ratio raised to the n minus 1. Just like you did in the arithmetic. Remember the n minus 1 in the parentheses? Same idea. That's your common ratio. And that's your first term. So let's write it. A sub n equals, first term is 8, times your common ratio, your r, is 2. And you just put n minus 1. And let's try it out. Let's do the 4 this time. So 2, when you're at the 4, right? So it's 2 raised to 4 minus 1, so it's 2 to the third. 2 to the third is 8 times 8 is 64, and there's your answer. It will work every time. So instead of doing the y-intercept and backing it up, you just back this up instead using n minus 1, so you can use the first term. So you make that into a 0 by doing 1 minus 1. That will back it up, and then you can use your first term. Okay, so this and this are equivalent to each other. They mean exactly the same thing. Okay, let's go to 4. Pause and do both. Pause and do both. Okay, you're back. So what's my common ratio? I'm multiplying by a half. 20 times a half is 10. Times a half is 5. Times a half, you could do 0.5, it doesn't matter. Okay, so a sub n equals, I need my y-intercept, so that's my first, second, third, fourth term. Let's go back to 0. So instead of multiplying by a half, we're going to multiply by 2. 20 times 2 is 40. Half of 40 is 20, 10, 5, 2.5, and so on, right? Remember, this can't be division, so you multiply by a half, or 0.5, times 2 this way is 40, so that would go here, times, common ratio is 1/2 raised to the n power. Or, a sub n equals, you put your first term, here we go, first term is 20, times common ratio is 1/2, but instead of n, you put n minus 1. Either way, these two mean the same thing. Okay, that's it for today.